Everyone in class thought she was just another teacher. But nobody expected what happened next. A young black student, always quiet, suddenly became the target of her cruelty. Every day, whispers, sneers, and unfair treatment slowly broke his confidence. No one dared to stand up except for one silent plan that would leave her speechless. By the end of this story, you'll see the shocking truth unfold and understand how one brave act changed everything. Watch closely, because what happens next is something no one saw coming, and it will stay with you forever. The classroom was quiet, the kind of silence that felt heavy, almost suffocating. Students shuffled their papers nervously, avoiding eye contact with the teacher who stood at the front, her sharp gaze scanning every face. Among them sat Jamal, a young black student who had always tried to stay invisible, hoping to blend in and escape the subtle but constant judgment he faced. His backpack was neatly placed on the floor, books stacked carefully, as if his organization could shield him from the world's cruelty. From the first day, the teacher had singled him out. Little things, a sigh when he answered a question, a dismissive look when he raised his hand, a pointed comment about his handwriting, slowly chipped away at his confidence. The other students noticed, but fear held them back. Teachers were meant to protect and guide, but here was one who thrived on humiliation, and Jamal felt the weight of it every day. Even the classroom walls seemed to echo her judgment. The posters about fairness and respect felt like lies. Jamal's thoughts wandered to his parents, who always encouraged him to speak up, to be proud of who he was, to hold his head high. But at school, the world felt different, hostile, unfair, and relentless. He wondered silently if anyone would ever notice. Yet, beneath the fear, a small spark of determination remained. Jamal was not just enduring, he was observing, quietly planning. Something about the injustice he faced stirred a resolve that no words, no sneers, could break. And as the days passed, the tension in the classroom thickened, setting the stage for a moment that would change everything. Days turned into weeks, and the subtle cruelty became unbearable. Every class felt like walking into a storm. Other students whispered among themselves, unsure whether to intervene or stay silent, while Jamal bore the weight of the humiliation, quietly, holding on to the smallest fragments of dignity he could grasp. It started with small, almost invisible acts, incorrectly grading his work, ignoring his answers, and making him the example of failure in front of the class. But it escalated quickly. One morning, she mocked his essay in a way that made his cheeks burn with shame, reading passages aloud and twisting his words into ridicule. The classroom, meant to be a place of learning, had transformed into a battlefield. Jamal's heart raced every time he walked through the door, a mixture of fear and determination fueling each step. He observed her carefully, noticing patterns in her behavior, moments when she underestimated him, when she let her arrogance slip, when she believed no one was watching. Each observation became a piece of a larger plan, a quiet rebellion forming in his mind. And yet the emotional toll was undeniable. At home, he would lie awake, replaying the day's events, feeling anger, sadness, and the longing for justice. But Jamal's spirit refused to break. The unfairness, the humiliation, and the sneers became fuel. Every small act of cruelty only strengthened his resolve. He knew something had to change, and he had to be the one to make it happen. As tension in the classroom reached a boiling point, a single day approached, the day that would test him, shock the teacher, and change the narrative forever. The day arrived, heavy with anticipation. Jamal entered the classroom as usual, but something was different. Today he carried not fear but quiet determination. The teacher, as sharp and disdainful as ever, wasted no time picking on him. She mocked his work in front of everyone, confident that her power remained unchallenged. But Jamal had been preparing, observing, and waiting for the perfect moment. As she continued, her words grew sharper, more cutting, but Jamal stayed composed. He had gathered proof, subtle recordings of her unfair treatment, notes from classmates who had witnessed her cruelty, and a clear pattern of her biased behavior. One by one, he presented them to the principal, calm but resolute, exposing the truth behind the smiles and order of the classroom. The teacher's confident facade began to crumble. Shock replaced arrogance as the evidence unfolded. She realized that the student she had humiliated for weeks had quietly built a case strong enough to silence her completely. Classmates who had watched in fear and disbelief now saw the courage in Jamal's actions. The power dynamics shifted instantly. In that moment, silence filled the room. The arrogance that had once made her untouchable vanished, replaced by an expression of disbelief and regret. Jamal stood tall, calm, and composed, showing that dignity, patience, and courage could outweigh cruelty and prejudice. What had seemed like an impossible situation turned into a powerful lesson in justice, resilience, and the strength of the human spirit. The climax was not just about exposing the teacher. It was about the triumph of courage over fear, truth over bias, and hope over oppression. Jamal had faced injustice head-on and emerged victorious, leaving a mark that would resonate far beyond the walls of the classroom. The classroom was quieter now, but the air was different, charged with a sense of justice and respect that had been absent for so long. Jamal, who had once walked in silently, weighed down by humiliation and fear, now moved with a quiet confidence. His courage had not only exposed cruelty, but had also inspired those who had witnessed it, showing them that injustice could be challenged and fairness restored. The teacher, once untouchable in her authority, had been confronted with undeniable truth. Her arrogance had been replaced with shock and remorse, a reminder that power should never be abused and that respect must be earned, not demanded. Word of his courage spread through the school, reaching classmates, teachers, and even parents. Conversations began about fairness, empathy, and the courage to stand up for what is right. Jamal's actions reminded everyone that silence in the face of injustice only allows cruelty to persist, but one brave voice can ignite change. In the end, the lesson was clear. Courage is not always loud, and justice does not always come immediately, but when it does, it leaves an impact that resonates far beyond the moment. Jamal's courage challenges each of us to act, to speak up, and to stand for what is right. If one student could make such a difference, imagine the change we could create together. If you've experienced or witnessed the same, share your story in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video so together we can spread the message further.